welcome back to Underscores, where we talk to the overlooked people in the world of gaming. Today's guest, all the way from France, is OvO, or Skymen as he is known online. He is the lead developer of OvO. Thank you so much for joining me today. It is such an honor to get to talk to you. I'm a huge fan.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah. I think a good place to start whenever talking to any game developer really is to ask, where did you get your start in the craft of game development?
I think I started about 10 years ago when I was still at school. Um, I knew I wanted to do game dev from when I was a child. So one day I just looked up ways to make games, and I found Game Maker, and that's how I started. But it was very, very hard in the beginning because it's a lot harder than you might think as a child. So I moved on to a bunch of other engines. I used RPG Maker, which was really fun to make small games, and it had a pretty cool community here in France on the internet. And that's where I made my first few game developer friends. Then I moved on to other engines. I moved on to Multimedia Fusion. It's a very old engine from the 90s that got updated up until the 2000s and 2010s, and then it kind of slowed down. It's still around today. It's called ClickTeam Fusion now, but it's not as good as it used to be. And then I moved on to Construct, and that's when I started to do game dev seriously, because I had a lot more experience, and I was a lot older then, and I started making games. That a few years later, after I moved on to Construct, that's when I started making OvO. Maybe 3 years after I started using the engine, something like that. And that's where I am today.
Nice. So you said when you started making OvO, but you didn't make that alone, did you? You did that with the team Dedra Games?
I started alone in the beginning. It started as a game jam project. We had a game jam in the Construct community with a company. I don't remember the name of the company, but basically it was the start of the hyper casual trend at the time, and they offered a prize for whoever would make the best hyper casual game. And I had no idea what that kind of game would be, so I looked it up on the internet, and everything I understood was that it needed to have very simple controls. So I made a platformer with only 4 buttons, but I made it extremely hard, which is the polar opposite of what a hyper casual game needs to be. So I didn't win, but the game was fun, and I showed it to Maker, my friend, who I've been friends for like the past 10 years. And he was like, okay, fun game. It's a game design project, so didn't move very far. I had like 16 levels. It's the demo on itch.io if you've played it.
I think I have, yeah.
And then many months later, we had a job with Maker in a small tech company, and we were interns there, so we had a lot of time. And as soon as we had any time, we'd make OvO, because I told him I wanted to make it into a full game, and I asked him for help. And that's when the project really started. We made the game in about 2 months, and then we tried publishing it, and nobody played it for like a year and a half.
Until the 1.4 update, it seems like, is when it really started to take off.
No, it took off a bit earlier, but yeah, it took off again with the 1.4 update. But the initial release was like 1.0, and it didn't make any kind of noise. Like, we made maybe $30 from ad revenue at the time, which is nothing.
Yeah, especially
and
for 2 months' work, I'm sure.
yeah, and about a year later, I was contacted by a friend who told me they published a game on Cool Mad Games, and they were looking for new games. So I contacted them, negotiated a price, and said, let's send OvO, because it didn't go anywhere. So I removed the ads from the game, sent it to CMG, and it got published like 6 months later. And it kind of took off in December of 2019. At that time, I had a new job, and I was just working. When one day I received a DM on Twitter from someone telling me there was a small community of speedrunners, and that's the Discord you know. It
Yes.
started like that from other people just making runs and sharing strats, and it only went up from there. That's when we started working on OvO again with a real team with real goals, and we made a few updates. Um, and then 1.4 happened. We had a cool deal with the CMG to make a speedrun event and make some more. Put it again on the website with a few ads on it, like ads for the game, not on the game.
Yeah.
And that's when it really blew up. Yeah.
So I know you mentioned ad revenue. That's how all web games, other than ones with like in-game purchases, really make money because they're free to play.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
sorry, continue.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering, like, even like on the official Dedra Games site, which is, the one from you guys, the developers, has no ads on it. Do you still make money from that?
No, not really.
So with the amount of profit you've made, especially like off of this game on Cool Math Games specifically, are you and the rest of the Dedra Games team able to make these games as like a full-time job, or do you have to do them on the side?
Well, right now we can do it as a full-time job, but that's not thanks to OVO's revenue because OVO doesn't make a lot of money. Because we didn't monetize it really well. We just put a few ads on it, and even then we didn't go really far with what we wanted to do in monetization because we didn't want to just ruin the experience.
Yeah.
Especially for a game that you need to play over and over again, and that's already very frustrating as it is. And on Cool Math Games, there aren't any ads in the game. There are ads around the game, but that's just CMG's page, and they make the money from that. We got a one-time thing with CMG at the time. Well, at the time we published it, and when we pushed the 1.4 update, we got a small bonus at the time as well. And then we published it on Crazy Games. And on Crazy Games, it made a bit of money from ad revenue. I think all time it didn't make that much. And then we made OvO Online, which we also published on Crazy Games, that made a bit of money. But really, right now, the reason we were able to make games full time is thanks to a partnership we got with Pokey. That we got partly thanks to OvO and thanks to the fact that we published the game on the web, but also thanks to our job that we had in our previous company because we used to work on web games there as well, and we knew Pokey from that. And when we quit our job, they contacted us, and then we have a contract with them, and that's why we were able to do it full time.
Okay, I know. Other than OVO Dimensions, which, for those listening that don't know what that is, just another, basically, sequel to OVO. Outside of that, do you have a bunch of games on the Pokey site, or is it all that you're doing the partnership with?
Yeah, we do have a bunch of games. I can give you a list right now. Give me a second. We made, as you know, OVO Dimensions. But we also made a game called Fantasy Merger with a friend of mine who made the art and a good chunk of the game's code and the game design, and we helped him push it to the website. We also published OVO on there, and we made a game called Quiver Shot last January, but we didn't push it to production yet because it still needs some work. And we're working on 2 other games right now.
Okay, so yeah, I guess I mean, I didn't even realize you guys have a lot of uh, stuff you're currently working on, and it's like all through Pokey right now because you've got the partnership with them.
Yeah.
So, one thing in terms of OvO specifically, not so much your other games, that has played just a massive part in its popularity among people in school specifically, which is kind of funny because it's like a lot of people who play that are just people who finish their work and are sitting at the back of the class, trying to play a game to pass the time. And they're able to do that because of unblocked game sites, which are just Google sites with tons and tons of games on them. And one of the most popular games recurring over almost all of those is OvO. And I'm assuming these sites don't really ask permission to put OvO on their site, and I don't think there's any sort of ad revenue either. So, could that, sort of, quote, stealing the game and putting it on there be considered piracy? Like, I'm not sure, but what are your thoughts on that?
Technically it does, and yeah, they don't really ask for permission, but what am I gonna do? It doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter a lot because I don't really make that much money from OVO, and as long as people play it, it's fine.
Yeah.
Plus, these websites are like 2,000 different websites that just stole the game and maybe get a few views from it. So I don't think they're even making that much money from it either. So yeah, I don't really care that much. I've tried to fight them in the past, but it didn't go anywhere. The only thing we've been able to do is maybe publish it officially on like one of them, but he made like $6. So
I got you. So basically, like, it's just such a large force that you're like, whatever. It's not that big of a deal anyway.
yeah.
So after OVO became a success, there were some other OVO games made, like you said, OVO Online and OVO Dimensions. What happened to OVO 2?
Oh, uh, it's complicated. Basically, OVO 2 was a plan to remake OVO from the ground up, but keep the design principles, like keep it the same game, but just make it better in every way it can be better. So we started working on that, and we got a bunch of ideas for levels and new moves and stuff we could do. But then we made the demo. At the time, we thought we'd just be making OVO, but with more levels and slightly upgraded graphics and not that much more. But then we got way more ideas, and I mean way, way more ideas. And the demo started to not really represent what we wanted to do, and the game we had in mind was completely different, and required remaking everything from zero. So we put it on the shelf for now. And also at that time, I think it was 2021, maybe something like that. We kind of got burnt out from working on OVO for the past 4 years, and we wanted to do other stuff. And we were also pretty busy with our jobs, and so we didn't really have time to go back to OVO. And when we had a bit of time, OVO Dimensions happened, so we focused on that first because it was easier to make. I still kind of wish we'll be making OVO 2 at some point in the future, because I really think it can be a good game. But I really want to make it with the good amount of resources and spend a lot of time on it. And at the moment with the Poké contract, I don't think it's a good fit. So as soon as we have time and it makes sense, we'll try to make it.
Cool. That's not a completely forgotten, left behind project. That might be still in the works. You might pick it up sometime.
No. It's well, the demo is
okay.
Like it won't look like the demo at all.
Okay, you're just saying the concept of OVO 2 is something you might visit in the future.
Yeah, and we've got a bunch of other ideas for OVO games. Like I've been writing notes for OVO related stuff for the past 2 or 3 years, and I could make like four different games around OVO, and all of them would be completely different. But we need more time, and I we both wanted to work on something else that isn't really OVO because we've been doing almost only that for Dedra for so long.
Hmm. So, yeah, like you just said, so much OS stuff has been uh, created. Do you think that's just? Do you think a lot of that is because you think there's just a lot of potential to be explored there, or because, quite frankly, that's Dedra Games' like big property that people actually know?
I think there's potential. I don't really care about the importance of the game for Dedra Games, if that makes sense, because I trust that we can just make more good games that aren't OVO, and it's not really an issue. But the design principles of the game can be explored in many other ways, and that's mostly why I want to keep making OVO games. Not really because that's the success.
So, yeah, it sounds like from everything we've talked about today, you really don't care much about the success of the game or anything. It's really just about the experience of creating these games for people to enjoy.
Well, there's two meanings to success. Like success in the sense of company success, like the money it brings, etc. I don't care about that kind of success. But the success on the player's part and how many people have been loving the game and playing it and sharing and making stuff with it, that I do absolutely care about. That's really cool.
That's cool. I really like that. All right, so one last question: are there any Easter eggs or hidden secrets within OVO that the community has yet to find?
Uh, Depends on the version. Because we've done a lot of stuff with the game, and I and Maker have both hidden a lot of stuff. But I don't know if everything has been found. I think it has been found, but I don't think everything has been understood, and some of the stuff has been removed later because for any reason. Like for example, there has been some stuff in one of the Halloween updates we made at one point. I think we removed it because we needed to remove all the Halloween stuff.
Yeah.
And I think nowadays, in the past few updates, it was mostly Maker hiding things, and some of these I don't even know about because I discovered for example, I discovered the test level, like level 99,
Yeah.
at the same time as everyone else. He just pushed that in the update, and I didn't really double check, and I saw it at that point.
Yeah, that level is truly something. It is certainly one of the levels in OVO. Very interesting.
I
Um,
think it's inspired by one of the community made levels because someone from the community made something very similar at one point,
huh.
like a weird training level with no real goal where you can just move around and find stuff. And I think that's why Maker did it because he found the concept interesting and he wanted to do it in his own way.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of really interesting concepts from the community levels. We wanted to do something with them for a long while, but we haven't really found the time yet.
Yeah. I've seen the OVO modding and custom level community is very active. Like uh every week I check in, go to like the custom level gallery channel on the Discord page, and people are constantly like making new, pretty ingenuitive levels that like uh all the newest versions have the four community levels at the very end, but um there are just so many more created by the community that would be like worthy to put in the game. Not saying it's just exactly that easy. Just put it in the game and update it. But uh, there, like, there's a lot of potential for um, even more community-made levels.
Yeah, definitely. And that's despite how little time I've given the level editor and the modding framework. I could go back and work on them, but I'd need to find a bit more time. And also, we've got plans to make something a bit more official with community-made levels. It's slowly in the works because it involves a lot of weirdly moving parts. But we've got plans to do something cool in the future as soon as we can with both OvO and OvO Dimensions because right now OvO Dimensions doesn't really have a level editor. It doesn't have a modding framework either, but people could find a way if they wanted to.
Most likely. Well, is there anything you'd like to add before we go?
Yeah, I've got a cool story about why OvO Dimensions even exists. I don't think I've told it in the server, but I find it's kind of funny. Basically, we were making the 1.4.5 update or 1.5, I don't really remember what we were working on at the time. And a friend of mine from the Construct community wanted to try something with OvO and make it 3D and work with a 3D renderer. He was the only person who was able to work with in the community. Like, it's a really weird and niche thing. So I sent him the project and he made something like a day or two, and it looked kind of cool, but I didn't think it would go anywhere. And like 3 or 4 weeks later, we were planning a Dedra Direct we wanted to make. Do you know what Dedra Directs are? Or
Yeah. I mean, I've seen them on your YouTube channel, but
yeah, we wanted to make a new one. The direct kind of got dropped in the end because a lot of the things we wanted to talk about got cancelled because a lot of stuff changed in our plans. But we still made some 3D stuff for the direct because we wanted to have a small 3D cutscene at the start, like the first one.
mm-hmm.
And at one point around that time frame, we got contacted by a company that saw OvO 1.4 on Cool Mad Games and wanted a piece of the pie, but they didn't want just OvO and go on their way. They wanted something custom. They wanted a new game and asked us if we had anything planned. So I made up a story about having a half-working OvO in 3D game that we could sell them, and I sent them a screenshot of the 3D stuff we were working on for the Dedra Direct. And I sent them the GIF my friend sent me because I didn't even have the files. He only sent me a GIF of the results, and I told them it was all still work in progress, and it could change at any time. And they were like, "Okay, we're interested," and we asked for a sum of money that was like double the amount OvO had made at that point, and they said yes, and so that's why we started working on the game. So I just contacted my friend, telling him if he was interested in working on the 3D part of the game, and so we just added the 3D layer on top of the original OvO and made a bunch of new levels and new worlds. And that's how the game started existing. And that's also how OvO.io was made, because I was working on the multiplayer mod at that time, because I think Toadie asked me how I would make one. So instead of replying, I just made it and sent it to him. That other company, Crazy Games, at that point also contacted me for about the same thing, just getting a new game. And so I told them, yeah, I have this new OvO multiplayer ID. I could send the game to you. And it's literally just OvO with a multiplayer mod pre-enabled. So yeah, that's how it happened.
That's funny. Well,
and in the end, the OvO Dimension deal didn't really go through with that company, so we ended up going with Pokey, and that's why it's on Pokey right now.
Nice. So, is that all? Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Not really. I think I've gone through everything. If you have any questions about anything, you can feel free to ask.
Sure. Okay, thank you so much, Asuma, for being the guest of another episode of Underscores. This podcast is produced and hosted by me, Sam Underscore. If you have questions, suggestions, or want to be on a future episode of Underscores, you can contact me at samandrews0808@outlook.com. The intro and outro samples Slingshot by Krista Workson. You can listen to his music on Spotify or download it for free on Bandcamp. Thanks for listening.